Yeah. Okay. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'd just like to go through a quick agenda, and then I have some opening remarks, and I'll be, as board president, I'll be posing the first question to the candidates. We're going to ask each of the candidates to introduce themselves, and we're going to try to keep it to about 2 minutes per candidate. We are going to do a moderated question and answer. We're going to alternate between people in the audience, and when we've queued up a few questions via Zoom, we'll get either via the chat room or by audio, get questions from our remote participants. We're going to try to make sure we have enough time so that we have at least 1 minute for each candidate to do a closing remark at the end of the evening, and hopefully we'll make it out before the curfew tonight. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the residents of Sandoval. I would like to thank each of the candidates for participating in tonight's community city council town hall. I am sorry to announce that Dan Shepard is not able to attend tonight due to complications from a recent surgery. We will be sending him a copy of the questions posed by the community, and it's his choice if he wants to answer via email. We'll post those to the community. As many of you know, the residents of Cape Coral elect a mayor and 7 council members. While council members qualify within their respective districts, they are elected at large. On November 5th, voters will be choosing representatives for 5 of the 7 districts, and we are fortunate to have all but one of those candidates seated with us tonight. The purpose of this forum is to give the nearly 2,000 voters in the Sandoval community a chance to hear directly from the candidates. This evening is being live streamed on Zoom and the Sandoval YouTube channel. After the meeting, we will be sending an email link to the community so that they can watch the recording and do their follow-up. As a reminder, the Sandoval
And my personal life, my business life, I'm a loan officer at Sandoval Community Bank, which does give me the flexibility to be able to serve the community in the capacity that you need to for this job. I do have a team that works for me. I love what I do, and the bank has supported me throughout this whole journey. And I am looking forward to getting to know what you guys want for Cape Coral and what your concerns are. Thank you so much. Rachel Kadu.
Yes, right. Well, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. First, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. We really appreciate you showing up. The last one I was at, we only had a few people show up, so it's nice to see concerned citizens. My name is Michael Harper. I am running for District 7. I moved here in 1993 with my family. In the last 30 years, a lot of people can attest, there has been a lot of change in Cape Coral. There's going to be a lot more change in the next 20 years, 10 to 20 years. The reason I'm running is I want to make sure those changes are positive for everybody, whether it's the 2-year-old, the young adult, the adults, the elderlies. We want to make sure that the change that we make to the city going forward are positive. My 3 top priorities are: the first one, first and foremost, is earning back your respect. The current council does not have that from the citizens of Cape Coral. And one way of doing that is bringing back minutes. We want to make sure that we are transparent. What's going on at City Hall, you guys should know about. There should not be any funny business. Second thing is safety. People move to cities because they're safe. We want to make sure we have a safe city. How do we do that? We have to make sure that our fire department, our police department are paid appropriately compared to other cities of our like sizes. That also includes the city employees, the other city employees. I don't know if you know this or not, but the other city employees, 911 works for them. We have a problem getting people staffed at 911. That's an issue. That's a real safety issue. So those are the kind of things that need to be addressed as far as safety. Also, I think we should be adding sidewalks. Every street should have a sidewalk. People need a place to walk. I've I consider myself a good driver, and I would probably say once a month, I'd probably come within a few feet of hitting somebody because they're wearing dark clothes on a dark road, and there's no place for them to walk. They don't want to walk in the grass, so they walk on the street. So we need to make sure that we have sidewalks and a place for people to walk. The last thing on the safety would be every bus stop should have a solar lamp on it. We need to make sure that our children are safe. There should be no reason for them to sit out in the dark because they get out there 5:30 in the morning. I wouldn't want my kids sitting out there by themselves in the morning. I don't care how old they are. So we need to have some lamps out there that are solar powered that we don't have to run electric to it and provide lighting for them. The last thing would be permitting. The city is having trouble attracting the type of businesses we want and need to see here. One example is the incredible bank right up the street, right in front of Home Depot. Talk to the gentleman that built it. They were going to build 4 of them. It was such a hassle with that one. They're not going to do the other 3 now. What does that say about our, I won't say permitting department, I'm not going to put it on them, but somewhere in the process, there is a problem that we need to fix. And that's not the first time that I've heard that it is tough doing business in the Cape or getting a business started in the Cape. So we need to go in there, dig it out, figure out what it is and get it fixed. Because a city our size, we good? We're over time. I'm sorry, you should just cut me off. I'm sorry. Sit and talk forever. Sorry about that.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charlie Pease. I'm running for Cape Coral City Council District 5. I hope that you'll check out my website. It's votecharliepease.com to learn more about myself and my priorities. I want to thank the Sandoval board, the HOA board here. I lived in here from 2020 to 2022, and my son at the time was 2 years old, so I have fond memories while this building was being built out here at the pool. Why am I running? I'm running because I care about the future, right? I care about my 7-year-old now. Growing up in a city where he's going to have the right amenities, he's going to have the things that we need for the future. And, we need accountability in City Hall. We need to make sure that we're holding our government accountable for our tax dollars. We need to grow in a smart way. We need to grow in a sustainable way and use common sense solutions for infrastructure and some of the things that some of the other candidates here already mentioned. We need to preserve our green space. And I've been a leader in this community with preserving our green spaces, with leading the effort to save the 30 acres of the Hunters Run Golf Course in 2023 from being changed from parks and recreation land use to multifamily with 600 plus apartment units on that green space, right? Who am I? So I'm born and raised here. I'm rooted in this community. I mentioned I have a family. I went to high school here. I went to school here. I went to elementary school at Pelican Elementary, so we have sort of a similar pathway to what you heard from Rachel. Pelican Elementary, Trafalgar Middle, right over here. I went to middle school, and I'm proud to say I graduated #1 in my class at Cape Coral High School. I then went to college, and I came back to this community because I love this community, and I taught at Cape Coral High School. Right, I was one of the founding teachers of the International Baccalaureate Magnet Program at Cape Coral High School in the 2005-2006 school year. I went on to school administration. I've now been a school administrator for 12 years. So I'm rooted in this community. I'm involved in this community. I sit on multiple nonprofit 501c3 boards, the Cape Coral Museum of History. I'm an immediate past voting board member of the Cape Coral Charter School System, the Oasis Charter Schools. This weekend, I'm going to help run an event that's going to raise tens of thousands of dollars for scholarships for high school graduating seniors or technical college students. And I'm a leader in this community today. Right? I know how to get things done. I am the director since 2019. I'm the head of school of our only vocational center, our only post-secondary technical college here in the city of Cape Coral. And I've been working on a $25 million expansion. We had $0 in the budget back in 2019 when I took over. There was no scope to the project. We're now going to break ground this spring to add a 30,000 square foot additional building to Cape Coral Technical College to bring blue collar skilled trades in auto, marine, welding, HVAC, and construction trades. I will get things done. I care about this community, and I care about the future.
Once I get the microphone out of the folder here, I see that we let the barbarians in the gates tonight, Sean Hartman and others came through our gates. But thank you to the association for hosting us tonight. It's very much appreciated. The more people that learn more about the candidates, I think the better we all are. My name is Joe Kilrain, running for District 5, and we've been here 20 years, almost 20 years. We were one of the first houses built in here for single families. And I have a little bit of a history with Sandoval, in that we got early on into the Bonita Bay issues when they were starting to go bankrupt, and were able to hold them accountable to make sure that we were getting the services we deserved and they weren't robbing our money out of here. And then we fought the battle with Taylor Morrison for a number of years, as many may recall. And that was war, and we got through that okay. And I think that when we came out, we had a very good reserve pitcher. But enough said about Sandoval, because the issues that Sandoval faces are not all that different than the rest of the city. I followed the council for 15 years, pretty closely. And basically, this last year has been amazing as far as the issues that have occurred. First of all, taking residents out of all subject matter capability and representing the citizens, taking them off all the committees, going ahead and doing the stipend and paying themselves double. I just appalled by it. And that brought me out of retirement again to go after this. Basically, my full focus is making sure that I represent the city, the citizens of this city, and doing the right things in the long-term interests of the city. Just from a materials background standpoint, I've more degrees than Kachoka, Komodo Dragon. I'm an engineer, a lot of business degrees, but I started a chemical plant at 14 years old, for many of you who don't know that. And I came up to the ranks as senior exec at Occidental Petroleum when I left. And I never forgot my roots. I came from a humble mining background, lived in a mining home. We sharp mine store. My dad was a dynamite guy in mines. Never even got paid money. He got paid script that only be spent at the store. So I didn't even know we were poor, but I will not ever forget my roots, and that goes to everything that I do, everything that I say. All you're going to get out of me is straight talk, common sense leadership, and a consistency in accomplishing things. And I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity. I look forward to representing all of you, every resident of Sandoval. As far as my priorities are concerned, we need to make sure that infrastructure is paced in a rapid manner along with the fast development here. And I'm being cut off, so that's good. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Nelson. I'm running for City Council District 4. I'm a native Texan. I lived here over 16 years, and I raised my daughter here. She was 3 at the time. We spent a lot of time in this pool and water slides with her preschool friends and elementary friends, fond memories in this community. I moved to Cape Coral because I had a 25-year-long career with Goodwill Industries. I was recruited to come here. I have a background in logistics, operations, transportation, thrift retail, movement of goods, you name it. I've done it. And then after I left Goodwill, I've had the privilege of working for smaller nonprofits locally, where we focus on things like scholarships. I'm currently the executive director for Dress for Success of Southwest Florida. We're a wonderful organization that helps women who are interested in getting back into the workforce who may have some sort of barrier. We do a lot of work with the ACT shelter. We handle a lot of women who are coming out of abusive situations, and we help them get dressed and get interviews and get back to work. Workforce development is something I'm very passionate about. When I served on council previously, I was a member of the Horizon Council. We focused a lot on workforce development issues and economic development. People say all the time in Cape Coral, we need more businesses, we need this business, we need that. The problem is, where are you going to find the workforce? Where are you going to get them from? I was at a meeting last week at Neogenomics, and they told me literally they make scientists. They develop and train and make scientists, because to recruit them from other places is very costly. Why am I running again? Well, I sat out for 2 years. I sat on my hands and kept my mouth shut. I watched a lot of things on council that I was incredibly disappointed with, shocked with. Cape Coral Yacht Club was probably pretty painful for me, and I know for many of us. And then, of course, a stipend, which is really just a moment of time. The bigger concern that we have is infrastructure, which has been stated before, and being able to keep up with our growth and development and do it consistently and do it always with the forethought of our residents and how are we going to manage it. So I'd like to see us get back to that. I'd like to see us get back to prioritizing our projects and figuring out ways to pay for it that don't involve our taxpayer dollars. I'll say lastly, amenities are also a big deal for me. I remember going across the bridge a lot when my daughter was younger, especially when she discovered the Naples Zoo, and having to leave Cape Coral to go all the way to Naples to go to a zoo. And I really think that as the largest municipality out of 6 in Lee County, we should be better. So I'm going to focus on that, figure out ways to bring other taxpayer dollars into our city. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rick Carr. I'm also running for District 4. I'm actually your currently seated council member in District 4. I was appointed in December when Ms. Cummings was removed by the governor. There were 13 of us that put into that position at the time, and I was the one that they selected. Right that evening was the night the stipend was brought into play, which was a very relevant topic at that moment. Still is. I think it's tainted a lot of the things, a lot of the positive things that have been accomplished in the last year in particular. Uh, so my position is I like to have it rescinded and just get that out of the way. I don't currently receive a stipend, and that's been my position from the beginning. My background, I've lived here 30 years. My wife and I actually bought our first house here in 1993. I live off in the Pelican Boulevard area. My daughter and son both still live here. My daughter's a teacher at Oasis Elementary. Too far down. Sorry. I didn't see it going too close. My background is in law enforcement. I'm a retired police officer. I was a Fort Myers police officer for 22 years, rose to the level of captain, retired, went to Naples to be an assistant chief for 3 years. Came back up here, and I was actually code enforcement manager for the city of Cape Coral for 6.5 years. So got a lot of experience learning about the city that I've resided in for so long in a much different way. I think I take that experience into the job that I currently have. As far as the future goes, I committed to running. If I got the appointment, that's why I'm here. I feel that I'm the best candidate moving forward, and I want to get back. I am currently retired, and this is pretty much all the efforts I put forward with City Council. And very common sense approach. Uh, I made sure that I consider all sides of each issue that were brought to us to make decisions about. Infrastructure, obviously, is one of them. Public safety, the environment, green space, all those things come into play with every decision. So you have to prioritize to a degree how you make your decisions and come to the decision that's best for the community as a whole. That's what I do every day. That's what I want to do for the next 2 years if I get the election. So thank you for your support.
Well, good evening. Check, check. Check, check. I'm on.
There's one here.
You guys hear me? This is. Over there. Over there.
Here, this one works. You want to hand it over?
Check, check.
Here, here, Dr. Z.
Yeah, busted.
Listen. Check, check. Check, check.
That's good.
Yes.
Tell your whole.
Are you, can you guys hear me?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Derek Donnell, and I am vying for District 3 seats. Those of you all who've been here for a while, you know that I used to be in District 7. I'm still in the same house since 1995, but they changed the districts. So I'm in OC, now I'm in District 3. Tonight, this first part, please note that when we get into these discussions, 2-3 minutes will not do its due diligence. So this first part, for those, I see a lot of new faces. Just a piece about me. Please stay later. We'll get into the depth of the issues as I try to at least just start on a highlight when we get there. But number one, I've been here since 1995. Thing I like to highlight about myself for those of you that don't know me. Two things I'm most proud about is I've been married to my wife for 31 years. Thank you very much. We just celebrated that. And I have two wonderful girls, spoiled rotten. So that's it. That's just my whole world right there. Other things that you might not know is I have my tie. I met someone who has a member in the armed services. I was in the Marine Corps before I found out about buffets. I started out down in Paris Island. You can never watch the movie Full Metal Jacket. It's not just a movie, it's true. I started out as an enlisted man. But from there, for those of you in the military, I moved from guide, and then I was platoon honor man, and then I was designated as battalion honor man. And while I was on there on the parade deck, the general just happened to be there and asked me this question. He said, "Son, do you want to be an officer?" I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, "I need an answer." I said, "Yes, sir." So 2 weeks later, they sent me to Quantico. So that's my Marine background. I was there for 4 years. Come here, I've been here in education, here at the school district of Lee County over 25 years. I'm a professor at FSW for over 20 years. I've been at Grace Church for over 20 years. I've noticed that the years thing because consistency, consistency. So let me just talk now about how I govern. Having been your council member for 8 years, this area was just, it was a thought, a project. So to see it come to full fruition kind of warms my heart. So here's what Derek Donnell brings the way I govern, because you'll be out there working, doing what you do, enjoying life, and all the decisions that happen, they are not as simple. If someone tells you the decisions are simple, I would challenge that. So for me, I have to have both sides of the information. I have my doctorate from the University of Central Florida in research and curriculum. I actually read everything. I go through, I'm good with numbers and let you know how we govern. So I've been given the cutoff sign. Please stay around so we can talk more about the issue of me running for Derek. I know District 3.
Good evening. My name's Debbie McCormick, and I'm also running for District 3. I've been a proud member, resident of the city of Cape Coral since 1972. I also served 30 years state of Florida, and I'm retired. So I have helped thousands of people throughout my work time with DCF, county probation, and the tax collector. So I know a little bit about government as well. I was not a veteran myself, but my father, God rest his soul, was a Marine who served proudly in Korea, and my father-in-law was a 30-year member of the U.S. Army, 101 Airborne. So I know the importance of the veterans and how hard they've worked and sacrificed for us. And people ask me, Debbie, why are you running for city council? Well, first of all, I'm not a politician. I'm a person who loves her city and the people in it. My mother will be 90 years old on the election day. My daughter, I raised her here, and now we're raising my 2 grandsons. And yes, there's 4 generations in my household. So I may be running in District 3, but I just want everybody to know that I am going to be your councilwoman. Not only that, I want you to know that you call me, I will answer that phone. You come to a meeting, I will show the respect that you all deserve when you ask that question. And I will work diligently to be sure that, we get the work done. Yes, the infrastructure. We need work. We all need to work together. And when talking about the stipend, I, of course, will not take the stipend as well. But I just want people to know that I'm here for you. I'm one of you. I've lived here a long time. I was a teenager, a single mom after my divorce. Now I'm a senior citizen. So I've lived here the whole gambit. But I just want you to know that you have a friend on city council when you elect Debbie McCormick in November. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Good evening. I'm Lori Lehman. I live in District 2. I have since 2004. I've been in Florida since 1990. I'm a retired RN. I also have an accounting and economics degree. Work for a family-owned construction firm, commercial construction firm up in New Jersey for 25 years, and then decided to pursue my first love, which was nursing. And I have been going to council meetings and speaking, as I put it, poking the bear and rattling cages, since 2002. I want to see the citizens heard, and I'm running because from being sitting with the citizens and seeing the council not answer our questions or answer it kind of half-baked, I want to change that. So I figure if I get elected, being up on that dais, I then can be a voice for the citizens because they need to be heard. There are a lot of concerns. I know I've talked to a couple of you about Hayden Lane. I know you have a lot of concerns about it. I've driven down it now a couple of times to check it out and see what I thought about the whole situation. But there are a lot of concerns within the city, and there's a lot of potential in Cape Coral. There's a lot that can be done, but the planning has to be not for today or tomorrow, but to continue down the road 10, 15, 20 years down the road, because we've got young families. The average age, the median age in Cape Coral is 45 years old. And as time goes on, they're going to grow up, and we need manufacturing here because people that work here should be able to afford to live here. And in a lot of cases, that's not the situation. We have employees that work for the city that could actually make more money if they worked at McDonald's, which is sad, and that shouldn't be. And I want to work on changing that. Thank you.
Whichever one. Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your opening statements. I'm going to start with the first question. The Sandoval community is a vibrant neighborhood of 2,500 residents comprising of single-family homes, townhouses, and condominiums. Our community spans several generations, including single residents, family with children, retirees, and seasonal residents. A key issue that affects all of us is the status of Hayden Lane. When Sandoval was first developed in 2002-2003, the area around here had a different look and feel. Hayden Lane clearly functions as a public city street, not just as a road within a private community, yet today Sandoval must bear the expense for its maintenance and liability. A key issue for Sandoval is that the Sandoval community does not have sovereign immunity protection as defined in Florida law under Title 45, Section 768.28 of the Florida statutes. That limits the extent to which a government entity, including municipalities, can be sued for certain actions or negligence. Sandoval residents pay the same taxes for municipal services as other Cape Coral owners, but we do not receive the same level of services in return. And as just mentioned, we do not enjoy any of the liability protection associated with municipal infrastructure. So why should it be in the interest of the city of Cape Coral to take ownership of Hayden Lane? Here are a few reasons to consider. Consistent road maintenance according to Cape Coral's public use standards, continued public and commercial road access, regular traffic enforcement, and the ability to regulate commercial zoning appropriately. As we approach the new city council term, this issue will be a top priority for Sandoval, and we will strongly advocate for Cape Coral to assume ownership of Hayden Lane. So tonight, on behalf of the entire Sandoval community, I ask you, do you support the city of Cape Coral taking ownership of Hayden Lane? Yes or no? And let's start with you, Lori.
Yes, I do think that the city should take ownership. As I drove down Hayden Lane a couple of times, there you have a wall on the side. That wall encompasses all of Sandoval. Well, if it's outside the wall, that should be a city problem, not a Sandoval problem. And not only that, they're building that medical complex. I guess it's a medical complex. Unfortunately, though, I've tried, they have the sign covering what it's going to be. Uh, so we don't really know, but my assumption, the way it looks, is that it will be a medical complex. But the traffic going in and out of that is going to be horrendous for everyone living in Sandoval. And not only that, you don't want people coming up Hayden Lane to go out the main entrance out onto Veterans when you also have residents going out there. You're looking at accidents because people aren't going to pay attention to it. And that isn't going to work. That just isn't going to work. They need to take that back over. The city needs to be responsible for that to make sure that it's maintained and that it is safe then for anyone traveling it, whether it be the Sandoval residents or people going from the Surfside shops or whatever. That all has to be made safe, and the only way it's going to be is if the city is responsible for it. Thank you.
Okay, so let me switch to Rachel next.
Hello, good evening. So Marilyn Stout and I, where is she? Is she here? Oh, yes. We've spoken about this. In fact, I was a little bit embarrassed because I didn't even know what Hayden Lane was. And then when I did drive it, I was like, oh my goodness, I've driven this road for years and did not know it was even part of your community. So yes, I do support, and Sheena and I, when we drove here this evening, we drove up Hayden Lane to get to the front gate. If the city's not going to take it over, move your gate so that we can't use it anymore. I do believe that the city should take it over. I think it's silly that this is still even an argument many, many years later. I don't know where the city manager I've heard that he doesn't want to support this, and I do fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Rachel next. I'm sorry, Jennifer.
Yes, I would agree. I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense. I know that there's two businesses on that road. I drove that road a few weeks ago, on the recommendation of former Councilwoman Stout. And just kind of watched, and I think it counted about 50, maybe 52 cars in 10 minutes. And so, yes, to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we use it, the city uses it. I mean, that's really funny that you said that. One of you said that about build a wall and
There is a wall.
yeah, yeah, it's a wall. They can move the wall and then and then we can't use it anymore. But yes, to me, it's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Okay. Derek.
You say you had 2,000 votes out here in Sandoval? Yes, I support that. What are you talking about? Look, look. That's the right answer. That's the easy answer. Here's the reality, because I love Marilyn. If y'all know Marilyn, she is tenacious. I said to her what I'm saying to you. It's about governance. I've been there before. And my eye, having driven there, having sat there and watched it, yes, everything leans toward, for what I can see, yes, it makes sense. The only thing I'm asking is for any candidate other than, I think, I don't want to call the gentleman out, well, hell, he's not a council member. They have access to all the information. Me as your council person, I'm always going to get the other side. I know it's looking this way, but I want to make sure to be able to not only look at you, but others and say, we're doing this and this is why we're doing it, understanding all the costs and how it's going to impact. That's the way I govern. So the answer to your question, for as much as I'm leaning, and I'm not looking not to do it, just as a candidate with no information and no data, which is how I was able to be successful for 8 years, I cannot say, yes, we can do it. But God forbid there's an albatross and we haven't talked about it, but I know that we can work it out, we can get it done and work collectively to where we're not fighting. I hope that makes sense to you. Please stay around and talk to me more afterwards.
Thank you. Michael.
Hello again. Unfortunately, I don't know much about this. I just heard about it this evening. Does it make sense that the city should take it over? Absolutely. If public people are driving on it, dump trucks, other big trucks, it's going to tear up the road. Absolutely. It should be a city issue. That's what you pay gas tax for, right? Some of you may not know this. We live out in District 7 in Trotta. That arch that you see coming into Northeast Cape, guess who gets to take care of that? They do. Guess who put up the light at Del Navarro? There's a high school there. People have died on that corner. And Trotta had to pick up the bill for that. That to me is ridiculous. That's a county road. The city should have been fighting for the county to get money. We pay gas taxes. That's what those gas taxes are for. So yes, the city should pick that up. They want to change the name to, I think you said Southwest 22nd or whatever it may be, then yes, just continue the road on.
Thank you. Charlie.
My answer is yes. I'll use common sense to find a solution and work together with our city leaders to solve the issue. I'm very familiar with the road. I mentioned I lived in here. I used to go over to Bon Appetito all the time, and that was my route. And to be honest with you, at the time, I actually thought it was a city road because it functions as a city road. So we need to find common sense solutions. I agree with Dr. Donnell that sometimes things are a little bit more complicated once you actually get in the office to actually solve the problem. But I will dig deep to find all the information and figure out a win-win solution so that we can turn that into a city road.
Thank you. Richard.
Thank you. I'm gonna try to stand up and not hold the mic. My initial thought, common sense approach is yes, we should take it over. However, I have asked questions, and I do have some access. It's a complicated matter, from what I understand. I do have some history with the city, and I remember it, and I think some of you may. That was the primary entrance route to this community before they had the access to veterans. And that was the reason for its development in the beginning. It wasn't for any other purpose. It wasn't for a secondary access point. It was the primary access point for this entire community before the access onto Veterans Parkway. If I'm incorrect, you should correct me on that. That's what I remember, and that's what I was told. There's standard, construction that we have to meet in the Cape, obviously, for government roads. I mean, for city roads, so we have to, if it doesn't meet those requirements, we have to bring it to those requirements. Conceptually, I am in favor of working towards the city Cape. That process may not be a simple yes. I think there's a lot of questions that you could ask, but I do believe it is something you can do. And I can tell you, based on my experience with the city manager, with 5-vote direction, he's a yes manager. And then what I mean by that is nothing can be accomplished. Everything can be accomplished if you have the policy direction given to the city council. Today, I don't believe the support exists based on Ms. Stout's efforts, but I think that she's hopeful that there will be that support moving forward. And I am a supporter of seriously considering taking it over, but I cannot commit to saying yes completely. I certainly won't say it just for a vote, or it's just, in my opinion, the appropriate way to do business. But I can commit to you that I will work towards that objective. And if we don't do it, there'll be a very good reason that I think everyone will be able to understand if we don't. But that my goal will be getting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Deborah?
Hi, I'm going to agree with the fellow candidates up here. I had the pleasure of meeting with former Councilwoman Marilyn Stout. And not only did I drive down that road several times, but I also sat there for a good half hour. And a good 85% of the traffic wasn't coming into Sandoval. So, like they're saying, it's a no-brainer. And as Mr. Carr said, I'll get all the information. But the way I see it, I feel, and I've also talked to some people that have experience with this city as well, and they explained to me how that would be done. And as he said about the city manager, I think if there's 5 votes, the city manager, the city attorney, they work for the council, not vice versa. So, we have 5 votes, which I plan on being one of them, unless, there's something in there that I'm not aware of. But as I stand here before you now, I definitely will try my darndest to see that that does become a city road. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe? You the last to speak on this.
I do have a little bit of history here. Basically, that road was built, that road existed. And when they started Bonita Bay developing this place in 2003, the deal was that Surfside Shops, what you now know as present Sandoval, and the Coralina Apartments were all going to be Sandoval, with the shops being kind of like an exclusive for Sandoval. That opened up. Sandoval had possession of that road. We saw Bonita Bay sold off and put shops in those other areas, sold out to another developer who developed those shops. We retained that road. In addition to that, to complicate this further, there are also storm sewers on that empty into our lake system, as does Coralina Park. So it's a bigger issue than only the road, because we're actually providing services and treating that stormwater through our lake system beyond what that road issue is. But separating the road issue, that road has not been resurfaced in over 20 years. It is due, and it will be due in the next couple of years. It's probably quarter mile, Bill, maybe a little bit more than quarter mile. It's going to be fairly expensive. The 2 issues are the liability of accidents, which is primary, and the maintenance cost on them. I tried back starting in 2008 through all of Zerlock's reign and wasn't able to make any progress with that in working with council to get it taken back by the city. Their issues were primary liability and the maintenance costs, and they knew we had it already, and so they just didn't want to hear it. We couldn't raise enough tension on council. They were fighting a lot of other issues at the time. Basically, what we were told is, because we even threatened to block it off as part of our property, we did. All of the properties and businesses there have a right of way through that area, so we couldn't do that. But the point is, I definitely will certainly lead the charge to get that done. And it's a matter of convincing, and I think you're going to have 5 people, or at least 4 people supporting it here, if we can't convince the 5th, but we'll convince them, or whoever that might be. And basically, we'll get it done. Thank you.
Raise your hand and that hand will come up with you in the mark.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Pasuga. As you know, Cape Coral has many lakes, and within Sandoval, we have 25 ponds or lakes, however you want to call them. I'm currently on the lakes committee, and so my question has to do with city kind of impacts this. Is there a plan to address the phosphorus levels that are within our lakes, in the potable water? Is that drains into our lakes, which causes algae. So I thought that might be a good question to ask.
So let's start with Lauren. We're just gonna make like this. We're just gonna go back and forth, okay? So I don't keep track. So we'll start, Lauren, please.
Okay. I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with the phosphorus levels at all. And I would have to do some research on that to be able to answer your question with any degree of intelligence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deb,
I know that not only do you all have the problems with, the algae and all, but as Lori says, I'm not well versed on it either, but I'd be more than happy to find that information and, get back to you and see what, the city's plan is, because like I say, I'm not on the board now or the council, so I don't have that information at my disposal. Thank you.
Garrett,
The way you posed the question, was that the lakes, from your perspective, just within this development that's having that problem, or is it more global?
It's global.
Yes. Okay, okay, all right.
thing. Our irrigation system is fed water from the city irrigation system. And it's known that that system has a high phosphorus content, and it contributes to the algae blooms, not just in our lake, but across all the properties within the city of Cape Coral. So I think it's more of it's a citywide issue, that's the Sandoval issue.
So then the question is there a plan? Now, unless it has changed, I don't know again. That's why I've got to get there and get my hands on it so I can come back in here and tell you specifically. But I do know when the rainy season comes, even in the canals, especially the ones off of Del Prado, and even further down Southern Cape, they have the same issue. And my understanding back when was that we had the DEP, they came out and they did a study on it, and they were mitigating it because there was a whole study when I was there. But as we speak right now, I cannot tell you whether or not that there's a specific plan for that. I assume there is, but once again, I'm just not going to make it up. But I am going to look into it.
Thank you. Richard.
Thank you. I have a little bit of knowledge, only because I've asked some questions. You're right. The levels are high in our dual water distribution, and the reason it comes up is because we have ordinances about fertilizer as well. That's not the only issue, right? We do contribute to it to a certain extent. The new irrigation ordinance has also meant to impact that as well. So there's little things that over time is what I think the city is hoping will make an impact overall on the big issue. There's no one silver bullet that's going to fix it. There's not one treatment. I don't think it's a simple fix with the phosphorus level in our dual water system. From what I believe, it may be extremely cost prohibitive, but it is something that is known, and it is something that has been looked at. But I don't think the levels are so great that they're the only factor contributing to the issue, at least based on the questions that I've asked. I think we all have a part to play in that. Each one of us as residents, whether it be through the fertilizer, acknowledging and following the fertilizer ordinance, because a lot of it has to do with self policing too. Within these walls, so to speak, also you have a lot of control over that. I believe you have your own enforcement mechanism within this community, which could make a significant impact on your private lakes. I know there is sheet flow that flows through here from the north. That's all part of this project and the development of it. And just on the perimeter, I know you do get a lot of water that way. It's meant to do that. It's nature, from what I understand, based on the engineers that I've talked to. It's a community problem. It's one that we all have to work together to fix. But there is no silver bullet, and it's something we all have to just kind of keep striving for to reduce those levels to keep our waters clear.
Jennifer?
Thank you. So, was anybody here in 2018? Was everyone here during the water crisis? Remember when our canals were green and sludgy and gross? Okay. So, in response to that, in 2018, I actually had come back from my mother's 80th birthday in Indonesia, and to late Mayor Coviello calling me saying, "You've got to be at the yacht club at noon," and we have a big problem because I'd been reading about it when I was abroad. And when I got there, we heard from all sorts of elected officials, federal on down. everyone was doing this. You know, it's your problem, it's you, it's this. So one of the smartest things that Mayor Coviello said to me, because he wanted to put these additives in the canal, and I was like, Joe, how on earth is putting something in the canal going to stop all that algae? And he said, Jen, I don't know, but we have to try something. So in response to that, I did some digging and did some homework, and I was able to get realize that our fertilizer ordinance within our city in 2018 wasn't strong enough. And when I say it wasn't strong enough, we needed to make changes. I did some research with the county and on the state level and the Florida League of Mayors, and I got copies of all their fertilizer ordinances, and I said, we need to rewrite ours so that ours is stronger. So I got a stakeholder group together with landscapers. Scotty's Fertilizer came from their national office. They were opposed to the changes. I was like, who would be opposed to this? Well, the businesses, the people that make money selling these fertilizers. So we were able to change the setback so you couldn't fertilize any closer than 15 feet to a waterway. But I think one of the smartest things that we had talked about too, which has been set up here, as Councilmember Carr mentioned, and I said this back then, and I still say this to residents now, you know, it's up to us. I mean, if you see people, I used to live on a canal when I first moved here, and I used to see landscapers just dump all the grass into the canal behind my house. And it was during the fertilizer, you know, no fertilizer season. So I think self-policing is very important. I think recognizing it and educating our neighbors about it is really important. The other thing that we were able to do was we were able to increase the length of time no fertilizer by 30 days. And we left it up to the city manager depending on if we had another water crisis. Thank you.
Joe?
Thank you. The fertilizer water that we get right now is primarily recycled. We pull about 10% out of the canals. We've done some great things with the city of Fort Myers, bringing that extra water in to hit with the reclaim for the fertilizer piece. And we're looking at doing something with the North Reservoir. They're all good projects. They'll help the reclaim facility. Here in Sandoval, matter of fact, one of the last things that we did here, that I did when I was in office here, was we went ahead and used our reserves to aerate all the lake. That ameliorates the issue within our area here. And we haven't had much of an inversion or problems with the algae blooms since that time. But and maybe only just haphazard occurrence. Phosphorus is very difficult to get out of the water. There's no doubt because we have an excellent recycle system and we reuse our water here better than any other city, I think, in the world. Because of that, we tend to concentrate the phosphorus down. However, the biggest issue with that is what the residents and the landscapers do. And it's teaching them, educating them, and policing them in such a manner that they follow those 15-foot setback rules. They don't dump in the canal. We will always have a phosphorus problem here as long as phosphorus is being used. And if the recycle system has a tendency to concentrate it up. So we have to be smart about it. We have to educate people and we have to put in appropriate measures like the fertilizer irrigation water reduction opportunities that we're putting in place. They're all good things. And that the water is not only a fertilizer reduction problem, we got real potable water issues in the north here. Thank goodness Sandoval was on the south portion here from a recycle plant standpoint. We got our water out of the southwest generation station. The north has real problems with all the wells going to ground. That's a different issue. That's a potable water. Thank you.
Charlie?
So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on phosphorus levels or aerification of lakes, but what I will say is that our job on city council is to be a representative. It's to come to forums like this, to have more forums like this and listen to people like Mary Beth and find solutions. And what I am is a problem solver. I will go back. Nobody's ever accused me of not getting in the weeds and trying to solve problems in my day-to-day job. I will be a leader in trying to solve problems like this when they're brought to our attention, and I will always follow up. I want to reiterate, we need to enforce our ordinances, right? We need to self-police. We need to educate folks. But we need to work with city staff on our Blue Water to take a look at how we can reduce those phosphorus levels, and I would do exactly that.
Thank you.
As many of the other candidates have stated so far, self-policing is pretty much where it starts, okay? The fertilizer is obviously one of the big issues. When you cut your grass and the guy that's cutting it blows it into the lake, guess what happens? Even when you're not fertilizing, anything vegetation that you dump into that lake is going to be an issue. Believe it or not, the dog droppings and the grass and stuff, that makes it down in there too. That's an issue as well. Spoke to a guy this morning about this. Funny that it came up, as a matter of fact. Other issues that we have, the Lake Okeechobee discharges. This side of the state gets the majority of them. We need to start pushing our politicians to start sending some of the stuff that way. It should be 50-50. One time here, one time there. So realistically, the city does have ordinances and policies in place. We have to enforce them, but we have to enforce ourselves too. You see somebody out there, you need to pick up your droppings, or if you see your landscaper or somebody else's landscaper, is said a couple different times, we need to educate. And I think as the city goes, we should put something on the website, make a nice educational video to send out to people in the city so they see it. A lot of people don't realize that. There's stuff that I learned this morning that I didn't know dog droppings were an issue, or if grass was blown into the canal, if it sits on the bottom, then that creates the issue in the green blooms. So we have to do a better job of policing ourselves, and then also get the politicians to get some of the discharges going another direction.
All right, thank you. Rachel. Mary Beth, thank you for the questions. To Sandoval, I believe this is private property, so I'm not sure how the city can help. But I will say, when I went to the Cape Coral Leadership Program in 2018, Cape Coral has a very unique business here up in the North Cape, ecological laboratories, and they actually grow and sell bacteria that does clean up the lakes and the canals, and it was very cool. In fact, I think when the sludge was happening, that's what you guys dumped in the canals.
Yes.
It's from ecological
Yes.
laboratories. So if you happen to see a problem with that, it is a Cape Coral run business. So it'd be really cool to support them with that bacteria that eats the sludge and the phosphorus. And in regards to what the city is currently doing, we do have the ordinance in place from our rainy season, June to the end of September, for our fertilizer with the setbacks of the 15 feet off the canals. And then we also now just enacted the irrigation ordinance. So we do have some work to do. We are doing work for it, but we all have to pay attention and be good stewards of our community. Thank you.
I'll just mention. Rest of the community, this is something like.
Sure. Thank you. Who has a question? All right. While people are thinking of questions, I've got another one for the candidates, and we're going to do like a football draft. We're going to start with Rachel and go back. So my question is, in your view, what is the most important long-term infrastructure project that is being undertaken by the city of Cape Coral? So, Rachel,
The most important currently is our utilities expansion project. I was literally a baby, a child, and this has been on my mother's doorstep with this is coming. And guess what? It's 2024. I'm a homeowner. I have my house. I have a daughter in school, and it's still not here. I mean, it's here for some people, but not for all people. So the utilities expansion project is the #1 infrastructure problem that we have. Tagging on to that, I know all of them. They know it. I'm a huge advocate. I live right where the Del Prado extension is, and I believe that we need to connect that to 75, and I will be loud and proud about that. Thank you.
Michael.
As Rachel has stated, UEP is the biggest issue right now in Cape Coral. A lot of you here have probably seen the cost of it. I can tell you now it's between $30,000 and $40,000. Like Rachel, I do mortgages for a living. I see the tax bills. It's anywhere from $250 to $300 more a month on the tax bill. Then you add another water bill of another $100. That's $400. For some of the people that have lived out there, or some people that may be going through it now, that's a big change. And that's where the city is, I hate to say it, is at times becoming unaffordable. So we as council people need to find a way to figure that out. It's not going to go away. The city's not going to stop doing that program. It needs to happen. But how do we defer some of those costs? Whether, it's through grants, maybe it's instead of 17 years, maybe stretch it out over 30 years, like the mortgage. If you sell the house, maybe you have to pay 25% of it back, whatever that may be. You have to think outside the box on some of these things, but we need to figure out a way to make that affordable for the people that are going to be starting to get hit.
Charlie Hayes, District 5. So I'm also going to talk about the utilities extension project because that is the main project. But what most of us feel who don't live necessarily up in the north, if you're living down in this area, is traffic, right? We've got to get our roadways right. We've got to get the traffic right. We've got to get the bridges right. But the bridges are a county project, and that's going to come here in the next 5 years or so, right? But we, in tandem as a city, need to work with the county to make sure that we're getting our roadways right so we can reduce the traffic. Right? Stormwater management is a big thing. We all see it. As we build out this city to 300,000, 400,000 residents, we need to make sure we get our stormwater management right as well. So there are numerous infrastructure issues, but the UEP, the Utilities Extension Project, is important to get done in the north. We have to get it done so that we can grow this city the right way for environmental reasons. We've got to get it done. We've got to get it done so we can be able to support commercial growth. And at the end of the day, what we need to do is work on reducing the cost and getting the project completed. And the way we can reduce the cost is by the procurement process, making sure that we're working to bring in national bidders, trying to drive the cost down through competition, and working through advocacy with our legislature to make sure that we're obtaining grants, like the grants they got from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection not too long ago, I think about 3 or 4 months ago, for $25 million that drove the cost down for the folks who are facing $35,000 to now it's about $30,000 in that particular section. Our job on council is to get things done efficiently while also helping save the taxpayers' dollars.
We're only worst enemies. We are growing so fast here that we create a real infrastructure issue. The infrastructure is a large umbrella. Basically, the most difficult infrastructure problem we have here is going to be potable water in the north. That affects every one of us. Right now, the aquifer up there is a very shallow aquifer. We're right on the verge of no further development. There's only 20 feet left in that wall of water source. Once we run out of that, we're going to collapse that aquifer. There will be no potable water up north. In order to solve that problem, it's getting the recycle plant online in the north and accelerating and reordering the UEP projects. And the way that you do that is making sure that when you do a UEP project, it's correctly sized, and you get the right contractors in to do it, both from a bonding capacity standpoint and from a capacity to finish the job and have the capability to do it in a reasonable time. We're looking at doing UEP 1. We're going to go to area 6 up there, and we have to go back to the west and then continue on to north. If we do not get those UEP accelerated and that recycle plant in, the north will run out of water, and that kills the city. That's the development of the city. We'll have no trades in here, and it's going to kill us. The second thing is traffic. Traffic is not a today or tomorrow solution problem. It's a long-term issue. But when we're doing the north, we can think about when we do the UEP, we put in the finished highway at that time. The roads and the support structures for that road should be done once and done when you do the UEP. None of this put it in and then coming back and redoing it again. It's costly. It's ridiculous to do it that way. So there are the two primary key issues that we have here above all others. They'll knock this city down. They'll create problems for everyone from an enjoyment of life if you don't have the traffic issues down. And we'll all be paying a big burden for that infrastructure project of the UEP. There are federal monies available for that. We have not touched those because we're afraid of the strings that come attached. The Inflation Reduction Act, aka environmental bill, climate adaptability. If we just change the tone of our water issue up north, we probably could pursue funding in a more aggressive manner. And it's a matter of convincing council. If convincing the legislators and making sure that national legislators like Brian Donalds are aware of what our issues are here and coach it in that way. There's money available for it. We have to go after it. Thank you.
Okay. Jennifer?
Thank you. I've knocked on a lot of doors. I've spent a lot of Saturdays meeting with neighborhood groups, and hands down, traffic is their number one complaint. They complain about the stipend, not really about council getting a raise because we are growing and they want full-time people. But they complain about the way it was done. But traffic for sure. Our feeder roads, Cape Coral Parkway, Chiquita, the roads that we own in the city, those definitely need to be expanded as we're growing. We also absolutely need that 75 connector from Del Prado to 75. That has stopped so many businesses from coming into Cape Coral because we do not have a direct connect to 75. That hands down has to be done. So I'll be tooting that horn too. Because that goes along with economic development and workforce development. You don't have that feeder to 75 to the airports, to the main, to get goods in, to get people to work, to whatever. That kind of keeps our city in a bubble, if you will. And that has been a huge issue for Lee County, for Cape Coral. I think it's very important when we're working on infrastructure issues like traffic, like this feeder, to definitely have great relationships with your federal, local congressman or woman, with your state representatives, because we're all in this together. And if you don't have strong relationships or strong collaboratory skills, being able to collaborate, it won't go far. Thank you.
Richard?
Thank you. Yes, UEP is a huge thing we have to continue to do. There was a period of time in our history that it was effectively shut down, and we're paying that price today. We'd be much further along if we didn't stop that process back in 2008-ish. It was effectively stopped every year, and I think it was a knee-jerk reaction that's still affecting us negatively. So continue that process moving it forward, reduce the costs, obviously, if it's at all possible. We had a significant increase with regard to material costs, underground material costs, and that's why that $30,000-$40,000 number is what it is. So there were costs that we were unable to control whatsoever. Water, we have to continue to bring water. As Joe said, the aquifer is deteriorating. We are bringing some water from Charlotte County through a pipeline. It's going to be irrigation water use. However, that aquifer is drawing water for those homes for the for the potable water and also for the irrigation. You don't want to stop development. I think what the first step will be is no irrigation. We don't want a part of our city to look different than the rest, right? I mean, that's not a fair thing to do to anyone in our city. So we have to make sure we maintain the ability to even irrigate, not just be able to drink the water. Roadway traffic. One of the big things we're trying to do is diversify our commercial base. And what we mean by that is that we have commercial nodes that we're trying to stimulate around the city. If we can shorten our trip distances, it affects the overall traffic flow in our city. If you have to go less distance to Publix, if you don't have to go as far as the doctor or whatever else you need for daily services, it's much better on our overall traffic flow. Commuter traffic is a whole different issue. If you're traveling to Fort Myers, which I did for many, many years, or even to Naples, going over those bridges in the morning and coming back in the afternoon is significantly slow. It's frustrating. We're looking at going to 3 lanes, both directions on Cape Coral Park, the bridge, which ultimately at some point will be also 3 lanes each direction. So it's a time-consuming process. Some of us may not be alive when these things finally complete. Like the thing I may not be driving, but long term, we are heading in the right direction. But we have so much population. If we go across the bridge to work, it's going to be a continued issue.
Thank you, Richard. Eric?
Yeah. Another one of those questions for those of you all who were here back in 2007. So the person up here, it's not just a foregone conclusion about the UEP. I was there. I was the one they called the straight line. The travesty for me, having been there before in 2007, was that if you go back and look at the master plan for the utilities, this UEP would have been done next year. So the people that you elect, it is pivotal. It is pivotal. This UEP, you keep hearing this word aquifer, and it could go over your head. But ladies and gentlemen, we're in a position now where we can do something about it. One of my great friends, Mr. Rick Williams, bless his heart, he passed away. Kevin McGrail even mentioned it. Back then, because council has to have a vision One of the things they talked about was water first. And had we done that back then, and it was there, it would cost $6,000 for the entire city to have been piped. The UEP for all of the costs was right at 18 grand, including the plumber connection. Go look at it. But the same fervor then is now. Every year we put off, the cost is going to increase and the people impacted are going to come. It's the same movie I see, and it breaks my heart on that. But where there's a political will, there's a way. See, this job, running for office, yeah, that's great until you have to get it down the weeds with a decision like this. It is difficult. I cannot tell you how many friends that I have lost over that particular vote to put it back on track. But that's what this job is really about. So we've got to get the UEP, and now you're here. In our grasp is to 3-lane Cape Coral Parkway. That's in council's grasp. That's our road. But now you watch the fight that's going to have when you try to take those lanes going east and west. You watch it. You watch it. But I'm saying to you, if you look at the way I govern, this is my tone all the time. I respect everybody. We have the conversation, but the data is going to show. When the data shows it, that's my vote. And come what may. Please, ladies and gentlemen, this is more of a crisis than we're just talking about. And I'm not trying to, scare us, but the alarm is right here. Thank you.
Okay. Deborah?
Well, I agree with about the UEP. I can remember where I live now, we were one of the first areas. And I cannot imagine having to pay 30 to 40,000. When we had to pay 11,000, it's like they cut that tree down. So it's like, where did we get this money? So another thing is the traffic. And like they're saying, doing 3 lanes of Cape Coral Parkway, well, there goes a lot of your parking too, which we need to work on that. Everything is, we have all these upcoming problems that have been from the past, but we need to really address them and do something about them, not just talk about it. And we need to work with our, persons that represent us at the federal, state, and county level. And I'm willing to do that because, like I said, I'm being elected by all of you. Whatever your problem is my problem. Whatever your concern is my concern. And trust me, I will be on this job 24/7 because I believe in helping and coming to an end game with all these problems that we're facing the entire city. Thank you.
Lori?
The UEP to me is the most important. I know when I bought my house in '04 in the Southwest, the cost then was $20,000. And it's only going up for every year it gets put off. And let's face it, if you don't have potable water, you don't have water, you don't have life. You need the water. The UEP needs to be done, and if it's done as a package with the roads at the same time, we're not doing the extra costs that down the road. We can't put things off. We've got to deal with everything in a methodical way. And we also need to address the traffic. That's also an important issue. And I have heard a lot of feedback about the roundabouts that they want to put in, and I'll be honest with you, not too sure that's necessarily the answer. But I'm sure there have to be more research on it, and we need to widen Cape Coral Parkway. And I have read something recently that they're going to get rid of the on-street parking, and that's how they're going to widen Cape Coral Parkway. And people are not going to be happy with that. Dealing with parking garages and having to pay for them and off-street parking, it's going to be an issue. There are a lot of different issues, but I think the UEP and the traffic problem are paramount. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay. One and then two.
Well, it's traffic. So why are we, now you understand that you were, except for you, the one gentleman is on the council. Why are we building so many multi-family apartment buildings and townhomes and apartments around here? What are we gonna, and plus you're talking about a water shortage. So what are we gonna do about this? I mean, how do you control the building of all these apartment complexes that you're going through all these communities? And also, when you mentioned downtown Cape Coral, you're building all these complexes there too. I don't know how you're gonna accept taking, like you said, the on-street parking away from them. I don't know how you're gonna accommodate all these people.
So, Laura, I'm going to start with you again. Thank you. The multifamily situations, I understand the concern. There's a concern that we're ending up being a concrete jungle. However, not everyone is at a stage in their life or a desire to be in a single family home. So, with not wanting to be in a single family home, you need to have the high rises. And when there's a piece of property purchased, people have, if as long as it's within the zoning qualifications, people have the right to build what they choose to on it. Now, I found out yesterday, of all things, the code on Cape Coral Parkway, which I know a lot of people are very upset because it's huge and it's right by the edge of the sidewalk and whatnot. That is not, our tax dollars didn't go to build that. They bought the property, they built it, they are also going to be running that building. It's a builder owner type situation, and the parking garage, they realized that yes, everyone's going to pay for parking there. And I did complain. I met the project manager from the code yesterday. And I said to her, but wait a minute. I said, if you're building the parking garage, and this was when I was under the assumption that our tax dollars built that, only to find out later that no, that wasn't the case. And I didn't hear it from her. I've heard it from a very knowledgeable source. And I said, but is that really fair that people are going to have to pay for parking? And not only that, if the parking is now not on Cape Coral Parkway, to get to any of those businesses are going to suffer. But to answer your question with the high rises, there is a reason for them. With some logic to it, though. You can't just indiscriminately put up high rises all over the place. The necessity has to be there, and I think there is, to a certain extent, the necessity. Daniel?
I understand a lot of people can't just go out and buy a home. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, these multiple buildings, people buy them, then rent them out and everything else. It's all like Laurie says, as long as they're up to code and doing what they're supposed to do, we have to work with them. But I think too that maybe we should, another thing which no one has addressed, which comes in with building, is the permitting. So that's another, even if you have something that you want to do at your private property, it takes you forever maybe to get that permit. So there's a lot of different things that we need to look at. And yes, I wouldn't necessarily want a high rise in my backyard either. But as long as they're, doing, keeping up with code, that's, they're allowed to do what they do. As far as paying for the code, the parking, I think that should be looked at again and come, because I know, we have meetings at certain areas in South Cape Coral, and the parking is horrendous. And it's going to, like Lauren said, affect those that are my theory is keep it in the Cape, but we're not going to have people keeping it in the Cape coming to our restaurants and businesses. They're going to be going across the river up to Port Charlotte, but we need to do something to keep it in the Cape. And we need to work with these builders and developers and maybe come to a common ground that, you know, we're not going to make everybody happy at the same time. And I know that, but at least work, about these concerns.
That's one excellent question. We're straining right now on the resources that we have, but everywhere you look, we're still building, and the very thing it further exacerbating the problem. Got it. What's the solution? But I want to take you back even before my time on council. Do you all remember back 2000, well, 1995-ish? We were just kind of Cape Coral, Cape Coa, just sitting there. It was nice. You could go up here in this area in District 6, District 7. They were giving away lots. Was anybody around here where the county was giving away lots? And we were just kind of sitting back. Then all of a sudden, word got out. And we were one of the number one city in the nation. You all remember. So what happened then was a catalyst. Unbeknownst to us, people just swarmed down here. We were on the news. We made national news about being the number one place. And what we did not have at that time was some type of policy to have what we want to call smart growth. You heard that. See, their time and the last, 8 years ago, we were talking about it was the 7-Elevens and Dollar Generals. Oh, stop. Now it's the what? It's the car washes and the storage bins. Now it's what's the answer? Where there's a will, there's a way. We have this thing called the Land Use and Development Regulations. I've already talked to some of our community members, some of the builders and constructors out there. And we can have a conversation about putting a percentage of businesses in certain areas as a threshold, just as a framework. That way we're not intruding on private property rights that were brought up, because they're not to get you into some kind of legal problem. But then we're doing it smart. Now, I'm giving you a very simple answer that's going to take a lot of work, but it's doable. It is going to come with a lot of strife. Right about now, though, because the land use development regulations are out, developers, and they're just sitting there wherever they are. They see Cape Coral. Oh, great. We have this. We can put this there. Look at this. And we're just building because we have not built a smart model. Council, we have it at our disposal to do. Let's talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. As the others have said, there are private property rights that we start with that, right? But a lot of these developments, not dissimilar to Sandoval, have developed in a way more intensive than a typical use in this area, for example. The setbacks in this development is much smaller than in a typical residential neighborhood. However, you had to make infrastructure to support that for this development. A lot of these apartment complexes have done similar things. In other words, the infrastructure is looked at as part of the development process, and if they don't exist to support that, they have to bring them to the property, and that's happened in a lot of these developments. Whether we agree with it or not, that's kind of a simplistic answer to it. Moving forward, there were caps on the Pine Island corridor for the number of units. We've reached that level, so there's no more approvals of multifamily development in that corridor right now. We're looking at making some changes on the Burnt Store corridor in a similar fashion to require mixed use development, not just multifamily, because multifamily is the money trigger. The Grove that's getting ready to come in, one of the stipulations we put there is they have to meet certain benchmarks for infrastructure first, commercial second, before they can tap into the multifamily element that they want to get to. So we're trying to guide that development in a way people call smart growth, call it what you will, but in a way that makes sense, starting with infrastructure, and getting the best we can from the property that exists in our city moving forward. It's difficult to forecast the future, but that's the best way I can answer that question. Related to the parking downtown, just real quick, as they said, the Cove is a private development. There is a section of the parking that the city will be able to tap into. The cost for parking there is going to be minimal. It's only to defray the cost of the system itself that monitors that parking. It's just an enhancement to our services downtown that we got that developer to bring to us basically for free. We've also purchased some lots in that downtown corridor, the 47th Street area where we have a lot of traffic, that the city's going to put surface parking in to offset some of the parking that we may pull from Cape Coral Parkway. So it's a combination of things that aren't as simplistic sometimes as you might get on Facebook or a quickie from a neighbor. And not that we make every decision perfectly, But I can tell you that a lot goes into these things, and there's a lot smarter people that start the process before it even gets to council. So that's my take on that. Thank you for the question.
Jennifer?
Thank you. I'm not gonna beat any dead horses up here, but I will say this, it's true, when developers come to us or come to council looking to develop something or change zoning to multi-use or residential, or council does require them to do the traffic studies, do the drive time studies, do the infrastructure studies, and they have to make sure they comply with it before it even comes before. So that's first. The other thing in terms of downtown, yes, I was gonna mention parking garage as well, and the fee will be nominal. I know, back in 2019, when we had a group meeting with a residential group for the yacht club, we did some town hall meetings and talked about the parking garage that was gonna go up at the yacht club, and I know a lot of residents were up in arms about having to pay for it, but again, just paying a minimal fee to cover the system was all, we were looking at the time. The other thing I wanted to mention is we represent all people. When you're elected, you represent all generations, everybody. And having been on the Horizon Council for 4 years when I served previously, one of the things that we did was a focus group with the 20 somethings, millennials, young millennials. Now the millennials are turning 40. Darn, no, I'm kidding. I'm not a millennial. But anyway, far from it. Far from it. But anyway, those millennials talked about exactly what we did here in Cape Coral with Midtown and the other apartment complex, Coraline. They wanted apartment complex type living. They wanted amenities in those apartment complexes. They didn't want to live in a single family home. These younger generations, that's what they want because they want to be nomads and move around. So as an elected official, I feel it's your duty to represent all the people and all the generations. And part of that is housing. I mean, don't even get me started on workforce housing because I remember in 2022, the then council was called out by Congressman Donald saying, Cape Coral's behind. So that's another issue we have to tackle as a city and definitely have a vision moving forward. And as a visionary, be able to work with the right partnerships, collaborating, and the right developers to bring those things to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you. Thank you. Basically, let me start very present level working on right now. We have 130,000 plots in Cape Coral. 100,000 of those were already taken and used at the beginning of this year. In order to reach, we're at about 235,000 in population right now. We're growing very fast. Basically, we are the fastest per 10,000 population, the fastest multifamily builder in the United States right now. We are number one. In order to reach the 400,000, or the consulting people we hired to look at long-term development say that we need to put in 26,000 single-family homes and about 47,000 multifamily units. So what does that boil down to? That means you got to build a lot of multifamily units. I'm a property rights person. I think that based on when you buy that property, if it has certain land use rights, you know what they are. You have the right to do with that parcel, whatever those property rights allow you to do. That doesn't prevent you from going through the process to have those land right use changed. So someone who wants to collectively put together enough development area to build a multifamily has that right if they can get it through the process and the land use fits. Let's talk about a good way to do it versus what we've been seeing here and sometimes. I always like to get people to have anyone putting an investment in to keep some skin in the game long term. I think that the code is an excellent example of the right way to do a multifamily project. Basically, it lingers upon the 15-minute city wherein most of those services are made available for those residents within a walking distance of 15 minutes. Your gym, your coffee, your drugstore, medical, all of those things are done within that commercial area, some restaurants. What we did with the Grove, there were several key things with that. We formed a separate corporation for the city, almost like the CRA downtown, but it's not a redevelopment agency. And we've had the corporation we worked with. We went ahead and specified that you can do 1,300 residential units, multifamily units in there. But the way you do that is in a phased way so that the investor stays into the game, builds the infrastructure as go along in the commercial piece. In other words, they can do 400, they do 50,000 square feet of infrastructure, commercial. And prior to that, they went ahead and they decided to do infrastructure for the whole thing, plus across the road for Lee Health and also the Walmart that might come in on Pine Island Road there too. So they have a lot of skin in the game. It's a $1.3 billion project, but each increment is stepped. The investor has to stay in the game to get the 10%, 123 million rebate on infrastructure back to him. If he stops or if he slows down, he doesn't get that. So it's an excellent model, and that's what we should be duplicating going forward. Thank you.
Charlie?
Thank you for the question, Darlene. So I am a free market supply and demand guy, and one of the most important things that the council does that takes up a lot of their time is land use and zoning regulations and dealing with those hearings. When it comes to properties like the Cove at 47, right? I grew up here. It seems out of place. I drive down there now. They're not done with it. Hopefully they, do some beautiful landscaping and that whole area is revitalized and we'll get used to it. But I do believe that developer had the right to build what they needed to build because they had the right land use and zoning there, right? As long as they're meeting the setback requirements, as long as they're meeting our ordinances, then they have the right to build whatever they want. If I owned the property over here across from Torch and I bought it 30 years ago knowing it's commercial, then I have the right to build a car wash there, right? If you believe in the free market, then you believe that. But I also believe that we as a council have a responsibility to work with the planning division to come up with subzoning. You heard about the percentage use, of different areas and sections of the city so that we don't have car washes in every corner. But at the end of the day, those things are going to come out in the wash because I believe in capitalism. I believe in the free market, right? So from the demand, if car washes fail, something else is going to go there. But I want to give an anecdotal story about land use because it's important. Multifamily like the Cove at 47th or like the Coraline Apartments and the Midtown and so on belong on main arterials. That's where they belong, right? Back in 2023, so I live on the Hunters Run golf course. It's 30 acres over off of Nicholas Parkway. Historical golf course, been successful. It runs cash flow negative like any other golf course in the summertime, but it booms in the wintertime. In 2023, a developer approached that owner-operator and offered him nearly $5 million, contingent upon a land use change from Parks and Recreation to multifamily. And the way that I was able to lead the charge with the council and navigate the bureaucracy and deal with the PR was to prevent the land use change because it didn't make sense in that area. The council listened, the developer backed out, and never actually got to a vote. But I understood the system, right? It's our job to protect not only the property rights of the people who have the property, but it's our job to protect the property rights of the people around that property based on the land use. And because that was Parks and Recreation land, and we're in the middle of a neighborhood, and they had, through their traffic study, said there were going to be 2,000 cars in and out down my street on Southeast 10th Terrace every single day, we were able to make a case. But apartments do belong on main arterials, and if they have the land use, then they have every right within our system to be able to build those in those right locations. Michael?
Okay, to answer your question as far as the apartments, the reason there's so many of them is because we honestly need affordable housing. And once all these apartment complexes open up, that will help the affordable housing for the city workers and some of the younger couples. I will echo everything that these fine people have said. In the essence of time, we'd like to get a couple more questions. That being said, though, I will say this. We need to be proactive and not reactive. I can tell you over on Embers and Chiquita, where the school is, there's, I don't know, that's probably 2,000 apartments. That's four-way stop sign there. You got high school, middle school, library, and a 2,000 unit apartment complex. You can only imagine what that's going to be in a year. Why wasn't there turn lanes, roundabouts? That's the proper planning. We have to think before we do.
Good evening. Thank you for the question. So multifamily homes going up everywhere, and how is our infrastructure going to support it? Currently, it doesn't. I feel like my nickname should be Road Rachel. The whole reason why I got into this race was because of our roads and our roadways and our potholes and our UEP. It's our infrastructure. We have to stay ahead of the game. I am a very strong advocate for all of our private property rights. So if that developer, and it is zoned multifamily, they're not doing anything they shouldn't be doing, we've got to stay ahead of the curve with saying our infrastructure needs to support it. Plain and simple. Yeah, which is infrastructure. We got to get these roads under control. We got to have more arteries in and out. We've got to widen them. I'm with you. Okay. Next question.
Never missed one. I would say each other.
There you are.
I understand we have to have our buildings, and that's fine. My problem is we already don't have infrastructure. What you said. We don't have the roads. We don't have the water. Currently, it will take 3 days for us to evacuate the city. 3 days. Think about it. Okay, so when you just look at the intersection of Pine Island Road, and Birchville Road, so there's the evacuation route. This evacuation route, which is already not, it won't support us. 3 days. Remember that. 3 days. Okay, Coral Grove, another 1,200 houses and apartments. 7 islands on 5 of those high densities, condos and apartments on 5 islands. They're all come out onto that road, which in some places is too late. I know. So, frankly, I don't know what you're gonna do about this because this is a big, big problem.
What was
Too
your
much, no, too much, not you particularly, I mean all of you. Too much building, no infrastructure, not enough water, we don't already have enough resources. I don't care if they're big houses, small houses, whatever, if there's an issue, I can't get out of it. That's already a debacle of big proportions, and that's even before you dump all these extra things on it. That's only one issue. Another issue, I will hold this, but this is a blanket issue. The council that we currently have is not listening to what this town wants, and they need to go.
What was your name?
Linda,
Oh,
this is Sue Ellen in the office.
Sue Ellen. So I love your feistiness, and I feel the same way. So that's why I said go ahead and nickname me Road Rachel. I have been a advocate for getting more evacuation routes out of here with that Del Prado extension connecting directly to 75. That is another roadway out of here, and I am with you. In 2007,
About that, but that's perfect. Yeah, why isn't that done?
because in
No,
2007,
we can get out of here.
Private property.
they did a study, and then in 2008 we had the crash, so they stopped it. And I was living here during all that. I was in high school at the time, and we have to bring it back. I will be leading the charge on that, whether I'm elected or not. You're going to see that 75 connector. I promise you that.
Well, the evacuation is and what we're gonna do, and I can read it. We're gonna do another study.
No, we're not, because we have the study already.
I
We have it. It was here in 2007. We know that this already exists and that our population has grown. Let's pick it back up and let's go.
They're studying for this particular intersection of Birchville Road. They're gonna do another study, even so they know it's gonna take us 3 days to evacuate. We can't get out of here now. Really.
Thank you for the question. One of the answers would be, as I stated in the beginning, we should bring back the community committees. That way we can hear from you. That way you guys can be a part of it. That's the transparency part. That's the truth and the respect that we have to earn back from you.
Which is a scary.
I agree as far as the extra evacuation route right now. Let me say this. You need to 3-lane Birchville Road all the way up to 75. That is one direct route. Northwest, southwest. 3-lane 41 to Tucker's Grave. Second route. Third route, Bayshore, 3 lanes out to 75. You can have 10 different lanes out to 75, but it's going to be a parking. So quite honestly, if something's coming, you may want to leave a little bit earlier. But to me, with all the building that's going on, you go up Fort Charlotte, or you go up to Charlotte County, you go up Burnstore, there's all kinds of building on the right. And it's going to run all the way over to 41. So you might as well go ahead and three-lane the thing now. You know, same way with 41 and Bayshore. Oh, well,
Charlie?
All right, I'm not sure exactly what the question exactly was, but it was, how do we solve all of these improvements? Yeah. So I personally don't keep buildings. I'm going to collaborate with our industry partners. I'm going to collaborate with residents. I'm going to collaborate with our stakeholders to try to find the solutions. At the end of the day, so I'll go back to what Rachel said. I fully support an extension to I-75 from Town Product Extension. But private property rights are what is going to stall that for probably another 10 years out in the Bayshore area. So they have to go through all that land out there. They've got to work together with the community to solve those problems. So these are complex issues. I'm going to work with our residents and with our city staff to try to solve these problems, but I don't have all the answers to your questions, but I can hear you, and I appreciate your passion and your insight, and I will work together. I promise you that.
Joe?
I'm not sure if I'm front or. Like, no, I really don't, and I'm glad I'm not on Sandoval's work when you're coming. Second. I'm just kidding. Basically, I'll start the easy one, the water situation. Water, our potable water issue is one that's readily solved. It's just we gotta get our focus back on the long-term plan and away from worrying about arguing with residents and council meetings and the stipend, and get people who are knowledgeable to ask the right questions on council. Because basically, C comes up with a plan, and if they're not probed correctly with the right questions, and you got get along, go along kind of mentality on council, it's not gonna go. I can assure you, when I'm sitting up there, I'm gonna ask the right questions. I'm not gonna be get along golden ball. And I'm gonna dig in and get the answers to the things so that we have the right direction. As for water, it's easy. You recycle plant up north, you go ahead and you accelerate the UEP. But in addition to that, I always believed in nation of home. And I've done everything from taking natural gas out of ground and oil to fine chemicals manufacture. One thing you should be doing right now, we're expanding the RO plant up there, doing a deep well, a 3,500 feet deep well. When we're doing that well as a test well, we should be doing core sampling to identify other water aquifer potentials in the north. Don't keep your aces all in that one project. Let's diversify. If we found another aquifer up there, it would accelerate everything. And I'm sure there is one. The structure up there is, I think it's acclimated to have other water aquifers in that area. So I think there will probably be successful in that. I've already talked to the city engineer about that. They're going to do that. It's a matter of, as you're doing that drilling, you do the core sampling. As far as traffic, I think the one thing that the city has done recently that's a step in the right direction. It's not an immediate solution by far, because the only immediate solutions are the things like getting those expanded roads and getting better access to 75 and South Bridge. But what we have done is we developed an emergency preparedness department. And what that does, it takes the day-to-day guys who just think about preparedness as an extra thing that comes up and don't think about it all the time. It puts a singular focus on preparedness. And if you know all about management and organizational management, if you're charged with a task as your primary task, that gets done before all other things. It was done as a secondary issue before, and we did a fairly good job at it. But the focused preparedness department, I think, is going to reap rewards from that. Not going to happen very quickly, but within a year or so, we're going to start seeing some real benefits, I think, from that. And very capable people are involved.
Thank you, Joe.
So,
So Jennifer?
that's it.
Thank you. I won't beat any more dead horses either this time. In 2022, when we had Hurricane Ian, that was something when I was on council we had talked about was evacuation. In 2017, when I was running for the first time, we had Irma, and I left. My daughter was young. I'm a native Houstonian. We've lived through many hurricanes. But the difference between where we lived in Houston and where I live in Cape Coral is the water's a lot closer. And when they're talking about storm surge, it's 15 feet. And my home that I own is built at 7 feet elevation because it's from 1980. I knew I wasn't going to be safe. In 2022, we had talked about evacuation. Residents calling constantly. Do you think we should leave? Do you think we should leave? And my comment was always, if you're going to leave, you need to leave now. You don't need to wait until it's mandatory or voluntary evacuation. No, because 75 is a part static. It goes back to incremental growth. It goes back to, building all these things and having that vision. And somewhere, I don't know this because I've been out of the game 2 years, but somewhere I want to see where that vision is. Because having that vision and being able to incrementally grow, and like we talked about earlier with the multifamily housing, requiring that infrastructure to be in place before you even move forward. So I think that's key. I think the vision is important, and I think incremental growth definitely before we start planning all of this. Seven Islands was a done deal. It's coming to fruition now. You are correct. But again, I think that 75 connector will be key for that, and Burke Store as well.
Thank you.
We're not
Richard?
elected yet. Yeah, we're not elected.
The interesting thing is specifically, we don't have no control over everything. That's the first thing.
How much is going to be hurt?
You're being heard clearly. Wasn't even really hearing that. Wow, status was. That's I am about realities. So everything that you asked, I don't. And I think leaving early is one of the that's what it's those. I'm sorry. I studied that was recently published of the duration of time to get out of this county, out of the city. It was a countywide thing, right? They talk about the county, not just the city. Specific to our city, it depends on the level of storm too, right? I think you could acknowledge that. Depending on the level of storm, it makes the duration of time longer. You can evacuate the number. Not everybody needs to evacuate. Not everybody does that. Call it me, decide what the law enforcement, I need to go to work. I keep up after the storm is gone, right? To find life. And what I've learned is that many people don't evacuate. Even those studies are done, it's not everyone doing what they should, right? So the chances of it being as bad as we as government has said is probably not the case, right? I would say that the duration would take less because not everybody leaves. That was done in the study. If there's everyone goes, I've never Hurricane Ian was the first time that the warnings came true, right? We've been threatened with storm surge 30 years I've been here multiple times. That's the first time that I was scared in my household. Yeah. One of the first times. And I got a two-story home, so I went up to the second floor. At one point, I had my son that were home. We took stuff that we couldn't replace this floor. I had that luxury of having that ability to do. So I understand your frustration. I can honestly say that there are efforts being made to widen the store. Matter of fact, it's early to put us up on a timeline, making a 4-lane or 2 lanes each direction. And we're going to bridge that gap where you have 4 lanes south and 4 lanes north right now. We're going to connect them. And the city invested money to make that happen sooner. So I also support the connector. It's going to come. It's unfortunately doesn't happen overnight. The city council certainly doesn't have full control, but we have advocated. At least during my short tenure in the city council. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Derek?
Yeah, yes, specific question. Why do we keep building when they don't have the roads, don't have the water? That's what I heard you say. Did I catch you right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's what I. So here's a couple of conversations that we're gonna have to have with the unique need, and I have said it over and over again, so it will be a shock. It's doable. we can run the water lines. What you're going to hear, is don't tear the roads up twice. So if you run the water, what they tell you, because Joe has got that technical expertise, you can run the water lines run right out there in front of you on the surface of the road. You don't have to tear the roads up where it takes forever for them to be utilized. But you do have to run tear the water too. So the answer to your question is that's a conversation that needs to be had, and but if we don't have it, we'll just keep kicking the can down the road. Point two, as far as the issue about why we keep building, is exactly what I alluded to you. Right. Because it's like going to the store, it's policy. Sorry, it's policy. But unfortunately, the way we have written our policy that allows for the building to continue, that is the answer. And the only way to address the stopping is to do what? Change the policy, change the land use, and do what we're talking about with the cats. And until then, there's nothing that we can do about it without getting lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. The specific answer to your questions. That's the reality.
Thank you. Deborah?
That was a very good question. I stayed during Ian. I just have a small story now. Here, but I travel to Barstow a couple times a month. And that's concerning. Actually, as I was driving, thinking to myself, if we had to evacuate, how do we evacuate? So again, it's not just lays at city council. We need to, call in all these various organizations, government, and everybody and answer that question because not everybody's going to stay. People want to leave. And I went during Irma. And like you said, it was a parking lot. So we do need to do the quarter at Del Prado Extension, and we need to most definitely not just 2-lane, but try to 3-lane, Burnt Store Road because it's past due. But there's a lot that needs to be taken into consideration. And trust me, I will be willing to sit and listen and work to get it done so that the citizens here, God forbid, we have another Ian coming, that if you want to leave, you can leave and feel secure and safe about leaving. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Laura?
I too stayed during Ian. I've stayed through every hurricane. And no, it is not fun. We need that 75 extension. Yeah, you're going to be in a parking lot on 75. And I've talked to people who did leave during Ian. But with bringing back the volunteer committees that we got rid of, we need them all back. But by bringing them back, we then get input from you, from other people who would have different perspectives than say just the council is going to have. And we need the different perspectives. We need to widen the roads. We need to be cognizant because of things like Ian. We need to be cognizant of the evacuation routes for anyone who chooses to leave. There's no question about that. Thank you.
So, Deb, do we have anybody raising their hand at Zoom?
So not raising their hand, but there's a chat release on that's lots of comments.
Okay. Can you share those comments or are there questions? This will be the last question and then we'll do our final statements.
What is fundamental completion of new road growth process? Is Florida study being threats in parallel to handling the growth to additional businesses being added to areas since traffic is already a major issue from that town, around that town.
I'm not quite sure. That sounds like a question.
Well, the timing of it's a state road. Yeah. It's a state road, so I mean, we can advocate for it as a city, but it's run by the state.
Right.
To help.
Start in January 2026.
Yeah, and the project, they don't have the complete schedule done for it yet. But the first things that they were doing is building the infrastructure along Pine Island to accommodate also this side of Pine Island, not the north side. And basically that's for Walmart and for Lee Health too there. So they're putting in that infrastructure. First thing they'll do is put in the infrastructure for the Grove bisection. They're anticipating, I think, 15-year completion. They can accelerate or reduce that. But in order to get the $123 million, they have to complete the $1.3 billion of investment.
Somebody else want to take a crack at that question? Okay. All right. So
This has been a very useful experience for the community. Once again, I want to thank all the candidates for sharing their time with us today. I think we all learned a lot. I mean, I learned a few new acronyms and I can start throwing around at the board meetings. So with that, how about if we start with Lori to do a closing statement, 1 minute each, and then we'll call it a night. And obviously, if anybody wants to chat with the individual candidates, they'll stay as long as they can put up with us. Lori.
As I've said before, we need to bring back the volunteer committees. We also need to make sure that citizens, even if they're not on the volunteer committees, are listened to. Like this woman that was speaking before regarding evacuation routes. We need to be cognizant of all of that. The council needs to work with the citizens to make sure that everybody's issues are being heard. And then, because until they're heard, you can't address them individually. You can't address them down the road. And we've got to strengthen the infrastructure. We know that. We need that tie into 75. We know that. But we need to work in a methodical way to accomplish all of that. Thank you.
Yes, I feel back in the day when Mayor Price was here, I was on a committee about the youth, center and all. And I feel that the citizen advisory boards, the budget review people, we need, this is free help. And I think, these folks have worked in various avenues that could, benefit the city. And I just want people to know that you will be my boss and I will make this a full-time job. It's not just something I'm taking lighthearted. Like I said before, I am not a politician, but I am here to represent the whole of the city and I want to work with those on the council, but mainly I want to hear what you as citizens, all your concerns, and trust me, my door will always be open and I will always be answering my phone. Thank you.
I had the pleasure this summer of visiting 4 cities. 4 I mentioned. I had the opportunity to go back home to Jackson, Mississippi. Went to Los Angeles, California. Had to go chance to go to Beijing, China, and then in Tokyo. And I want to tell you this, Cape Coral, we have a beautiful city. We have a beautiful city. None of those cities can touch what we have. What we need to do is that bring back that confidence, work together. And notice, you haven't heard me use pronoun I, because it takes 5 people. We great to be 8, but you have to have a person who's going to work together with the council, along with the residents, to keep the city moving forward. And it is doable. It is doable because you get what you vote for. So please vote for me, Derek Donnell. I'll be here as long. My wife said I can stay as long as you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be here. I really do appreciate it. Any opportunity to get to speak with the public, I take every opportunity I get. So thank you for that. I can just tell you, over the last 9 months as your appointed city council member, I've enjoyed every minute of it. I've been open. My entire adult life is spent in public service as a police officer, as a code manager, worked in the school district for a short time. So my commitment is obvious, and my dedication to you. I can just tell you that I'll be accountable to you, regardless, moving forward. If you elect me, I will be the best representative I can for you in the next 2 years. It's only a 2-year term for the District 4 seat. So whoever gets it gets 2 years. before we have to get reelected for another 4 years, we choose to do that. So I can just tell you for the last 9 months, I've been committed every single day to the city, to all of you, to do the best job that I possibly can over my entire career. So if you give me the opportunity, give me your vote, I continue and I will continue to do that for you, and I will remain accountable to you every single day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all again for having us this evening. My name is Jennifer Nelson. Again, I'm running for District 4. I really love this city. It's been my home. I raised my daughter here. I previously served, and I can tell you that the overwhelming amount of residents that would always come to visit, come to see me, or I would oftentimes meet out in the city for coffee was wonderful. You all are definitely the people that we listened to when I was on council. We've heard you, and that's a lot of the reason why I'm running again, because I just don't feel like your voice is being heard. A newlywed, recently got married in June, so my husband's here, and I'm very fortunate to have his support and my family's support, and definitely many other elected officials and public safety folks as well. I've done the job. I'm a pretty good visionary. I'm definitely great at building consensus, which is what you need when you are one of 8 votes. Thank you.
Joe?
Thank you. Again, Joe Kilrain, District 5. Pat and I have been moved all over this place, all over the country, and I've been international for 45 years. We found Cape Coral and we love it. And what I've seen in the last year really brought me out of retirement. We need to make sure that Cape Coral is going into the future the right way. And I'm determined to represent you in doing that, making sure the citizens are represented. And if I do anything else, I'm going to always talk to you straight. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing things that relate to what the residents want in a common sense manner, and we will get things done. I don't need another check on my resume. My resume is pretty damn full, but basically, it's not a political stepping stone. I'm fully dedicated to this job, and those who know me know that that means whatever it takes. And I'll do it full time, and I'll do extra time, whatever time is done. And I can process things fairly quickly, so a lot of stuff's going to get done. And I have an uncanny capability of not being intimidated, but be able to develop a lot of collaborative leadership in that manner and building consensus. I look for your vote. Again, I'm going to have a little bit of a fundraising meet and greet on October 8th at Rusty from 6 to 8. Everyone's invited, so I appreciate your attendance. But I also ask for your vote, Kilrain for District 5. That's the guy you got to vote for. Thank you.
Charlie?
Once again, I want to say thank you for hosting us here tonight. My name is Charlie Pease. I'm running for District 5. We need to get certain things done. There are certain low-hanging fruit. We're going to end the stipend. We're going to restore the advisory committees. We're going to restore valuing our residents and listening to our residents, and we need to work together to solve problems. We need leaders who are problem solvers. We need leaders who are listeners. We need leaders who are learners. We need leaders who are collaborative. And that's who I am in this community today. Right? I have a family here. I will represent the median age here in Cape Coral, but I'll also represent everyone in making sure that we get our future right. God willing, I plan to be here for the next 50 plus years, and I really care about this city and getting the future right. Progress is inevitable, but I also care deeply about our path. I sit on the Cape Coral Museum of History Board of Directors. I fought against, tearing down the historical ballroom at the yacht club. I care about J.C. Park. I care about this city and getting our growth right. So please vote Pease. Please vote Charlie Pease for District 5. My website is votecharliepease.com. I hope that you'll check it out and learn more about who I am in the community and the work that I do with the technical college, the work that I do with nonprofits, and why I'm in this race. Please check out my website, votecharliepease.com.
Thank you. Michael?
I want to say thank you again for coming out this evening, and the questions that you've asked are very informative. As I stated several times, our job is to earn your trust back. And our first job as a council is to get the committees back up and running so we have your input. I look at the city as a business, and it needs to be ran as such. You guys are the stockholders of that business. If we're not doing a good job, virus. That's your right as a stockholder of this company. Train of thought. Mike Harper, District 7.
Thank you. And Rachel, thank you.
Thank you again for hosting, and thank you all for being informed voters. I'm Rachel Kaduk. I'm running in District 7. I hope to earn your vote. Road Rachel, I got in because of infrastructure. So I plan to really have infrastructure on my forefront, and that's what I plan to accomplish. Traffic, roadways, UEP, 75 connector. I'm raising my family here. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm also hosting an event next Thursday, the 26th, at Tito's Cantina. You guys are all welcome. Drinks and naps on me. So please come. You can have one-on-one with me. And Tito's attendance has been confirmed, so you can meet the UFC fighter himself, who also is a mayor. That's a whole other story. But I do have his support. Again, I'm running for infrastructure. It would be an honor to represent you guys in Cape Coral, again, the city that I grew up in and that my daughter is now growing up in. And I really hope to have your support. The way that you can support me is monetary, of course. It costs a lot of money to run campaigns. I need your prayers. I need your thoughts. I need you to spread your word to your community since we can't be in here door knocking. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For council.
Everybody have a good evening. Thank you.
Rachel, want to give a plug to Megan? She's going to have a bottom show now.
All right.
Want to a plug?
Thank you, everybody.